Good evening, welcome to Camnet TV Main News. I am Precious Mzea Sakaleji. The headlines. PF Secretariat go for Bill 10 PF absentee MPs. State discontinues assault case of 3 Mandevu PF officials. MUSHIMBA says COVID-19 has awakened his government. In international news, tense await as U.S. election winner remains unclear. And in sports, Zambia under-17 women's team beat South Africa by 2-1. Details coming to you after this commercial. Lusaka is here. We have you all covered with just 150 kwacha. You can advertise every day from 17 hours to 18 hours. For a 30-second ad, get the benefit of selling your products and services on Lusaka. For more details, call our marketing department on +260 953 995099 +260 962 444-726 or +260 971 177 467. Email us on info@camnettvafrica.com. Terms and conditions apply. And now the main news in details. Masabaka District Commissioner Jen Chira says it is the duty of government to take care of the less privileged, especially the aged who are unable to support themselves. Ms. Chira was speaking when she visited a 75-year-old Masabaka woman, Esther Musole Silunda, who has been abandoned by her family. The woman is unable to walk but only crawls. The district commissioner has since donated 12 iron sheets, 10 pockets of cement, cooking oil, meal, beans and other food supplements to help the woman and her husband, who is also aged.
I've come here on behalf of His Excellency the President, Mr. Edgar Chagwalungu, and of course as Disaster Management and Mitigation Unit. We got to know about the suffering of this couple. Of course, our million thanks goes to Mr. Chisangana, who had a first encounter with this couple. And we are happy that he rushed to the media, because we know that the media is the disseminator of information. Had this information not been disseminated, government would not have heard or known about this case. And I'm happy to report that as government we quickly responded, because it is our mandate to look after the vulnerable people in our communities. So today, representing His Excellency the President and Disaster Management Mitigation Unit, as government we are donating bags of cement to this family, as well as roofing sheets. We have also brought beans, we have brought cooking oil, we have brought carpenter, and of course we have brought the wheelchair, because according to the report that we received, Mrs. Chinyama has been immobile for the past 2 years or so. And we thought this wheelchair is going to help her to move about. And this is going to lessen the burden on the husband who has been taking care of the wife. So with this wheelchair, at least she can do some of the things by herself than being helped by the husband every time.
Still in Southern Province, a bus driver on Tuesday accidentally killed his own conductor in Monza district. The accident happened around 12:25 hours, 30 kilometers north of Monza town along the Great North Road. Involved was a Mercedes-Benz bus registration number ADE 1230, property of Channel Transport Limited, which was being driven by Terry Mtale, aged 26, of Makeni compound in Lusaka, and a pedestrian identified as Leonard Malambi, aged not known, of Malota compound in Livingston, who was a bus conductor. The accident happened when the driver was reversing the bus and in the process hit the said bus conductor, who was attending to a passenger outside the bus, and due to the impact, the conductor sustained 8 injuries and died on the spot. The driver of the bus is detained in police custody, charged with the offense of causing death by dangerous driving, while the body of the deceased is laying in Monza Mission Hospital mortuary awaiting post-mortem. Acting police spokesperson Danny Mwale has confirmed the sad development to Camnet News.
Police in Monze district recorded a fatal road traffic accident which occurred on November 3, 2020 at around 12:25 hours, 30 kilometers north of Monze town along the Great North Road. Involved was a Mercedes-Benz bus, registration number ADE 1230, property of Channel Transport Limited, which was being driven by Terry Mutale, aged 26, of McKinney Compound in Lusaka, and a pedestrian identified as Leonard Mulambi, age not known, of Malota Compound in Livingstone, who was a bus conductor. The accident happened when the driver was reversing the bus and in the process hit the said conductor, who was attending to a passenger outside the bus. Due to the impact, the conductor sustained head injuries and died on the spot. The driver of the bus is detained in police custody, charged with the offense of causing death by dangerous driving, while the body of the deceased is in Monze Mission Hospital mortuary awaiting post-mortem.
In other news, the state has discontinued an assault involving 3 PF officials from Mandevu constituency. Lusaka Magistrate Lamek Mwale Wednesday entered a nolle prosequi mid-trial. The 3 PF officials who were dragged to court for assault on fellow PF official during the Mandevu intra-party elections on the 15th of March 2020 are Cliff Walia, Martin Katazo and John Kamweo. The 3 officials were accused of assaulting Lemi Walia, Thomas Piri and Gladys Mwili, thereby occasioning them actual bodily harm. When the matter came up for continuation of trial, Magistrate Mwale was informed by state prosecutors that they had received instructions from the Director of Public Prosecutions DPP to discontinue the case. Speaking shortly after his discharge, one of the accused persons, Walia, thanked the state for setting him free and others.
3 patriotic front cadres who had mercilessly beaten up their fellow party members during an intra-party election early this year have been set at liberty by the Lusaka's Magistrate Court after the state discontinued their case. In this case, Cliffas Walia, District Youth Chairperson of Chaisa Compound, was jointly charged with Martin Katazo, Ward Youth Chairman of Mandevu, and John Kamweo, a politician, with 3 counts of assault, contrary to Section 248 of the Penal Code, Chapter 87 of the Laws of Zambia. When the matter came before Lusaka Chief Resident Magistrate Lamek Mwale, the state informed the court that it had received instructions from the Director of Public Prosecution to discontinue the case. In speaking shortly after his court appearance, Cliffas Walia thanked the court for its decision and vowed not to ever engage in such activities.
I'm going to bless my Almighty God for this opportunity. No court issue is not easy, it's very hard. It's a hard way. And I thank God for this time that I'm free. And I know I've learned something, and I'll go in the right way. In life, you need to learn. I've learned something, and I'm never going to be the same again. I want to be a nice person.
The trio were said to have assaulted Lemi Walia, Timothy Piri, and Gladys Mwila after a dispute over leadership. Evidence adduced during trial when the victim testified is that on the material day, the 15th of March 2020, they were in Raphael Chota ward in Chipata Township, where they were supposed to have intra-party ward elections. In Mandevu, PF Member of Parliament Jean Kapata was also present together with the Elections Committee. Lemi Walia, the victim, had testified that while he was inside, his supporters who were supposed to vote for him were stopped from entering by 2 of the accused persons. He said when he went outside to clear his supporters, John started punching him in the chest while Martin started whipping him with a hosepipe and pepper spray was sprayed on his face. He told court that he was later led into the elections hall where Kapata and the elections committee members started discussing whether the polls should proceed or not. Meanwhile, the defense lawyer said this.
We are defense counsel for Cliff Walia and others, so the matter was scheduled for continuation of trial today, and the state has since entered a nolle. And as the law regarding a nolle is too well settled to be a subject of controversy, I'm sure we wouldn't make any statement to that effect, but we are glad that the state has used its discretion judiciously, and as such, we look forward to many more of such cases on better grounds, such as the one in Castle, being entered. So, as Defense Counsel, we are glad.
Miriam Kemba, reporting for Camnet TV News in Lusaka.
A 33-year-old judiciary worker at the Lusaka Court of Appeal has been sentenced to 3 years imprisonment with hard labor for forging a High Court judge's signature and a court ruling. Lusaka Magistrate Tandosa Chabala found Brian Mbewe guilty of forgery, thereby handing him a harsh punishment. Brian Mbewe, a data entry clerk at the Court of Appeal, was facing 2 counts of forging of judicial documents and 2 counts of uttering false documents. Particulars are that on 28th of March 2018, Mbewe forged a warrant of execution of sentence of Martin Zimba, a prisoner, by purporting to show it was signed by Lusaka High Court Judge Justice Chinwanwa Zulu. When the matter came up for judgment this morning, Magistrate Chabala found Mbewe guilty after establishing that the state had proved the case of forgery and uttering false document against him beyond reasonable doubt. Delivering judgment, the magistrate wondered why a judicial officer like him could commit such an offense. In count 1 and 3, he had been given 3 years sentence, and count 2 and 4, 2 years of which he will run concurrently effective today, the day of judgment. The Lusaka City Council LCC, through the Department of Housing and Social Services, has embarked on a 3-day training workshop of 102 facilitators, ward development committee members in the prevention of COVID-19 pandemic. Acting Assistant Director of Housing and Social Services, Hanson Chishimba, says the program is aimed at supplementing the central government's effort in fighting the disease. Mr. Chishimba states that while government is doing all it can to end the pandemic, every effort from other stakeholders is cardinal. As of 15th of October 2020, Zambia had over 15,000 COVID-19 cases, which the LCC department says presents a crisis for poor communities, hence the need to ensure that people are equipped with knowledge of preventing the disease. The trained ward development committee members and 120 facilitators are expected to enhance COVID emergency response and recovery in communities.
What's 10? The group is members. So we want to share information on COVID-19. So what we are looking at is basically what is COVID-19, how are the members coping with COVID-19, how has it affected them, and so learning from the experiences that they have had, we're trying to come up with a recovery plan for the community members. So this meeting actually is just one of the many meetings that we've lined up as LCC and our partners to look at how best we're going to help our communities recover from the effects of COVID-19. And after these 5, we know it's everyone who is affected. We're hoping we're going to roll it to all the 33 wards of the site.
In other news, Lusaka Town Clerk Alex Mwanza has charged that resolving waste disposal challenges requires concerted effort from waste collection companies, residents, cooperating partners and local authorities. Speaking during the stakeholders meeting on Recycling Wednesday, Mr. Mwanza says this challenge demands that everyone comes on board and takes full responsibility of ensuring that Lusaka is kept clean, green and healthy. The town clerk emphasized the importance of recycling, adding that it plays an important role in promoting the Keep Zambia Clean, Green and Healthy campaign, which was relaunched in 2018. He explains that the City Council's aim is to achieve the 30% recycling rate by 2030, in line with Zambia's Vision 2030 and Sustainable Development Goal number 12 on recycling. Mr. Mwanza also stated that promoting the local authorities' waste management strategic objects of reduction, reusing and recycling will also assist in creating income opportunities and new skills acquisitions for the communities, especially for the youths.
As you may know, Lusaka is currently facing a challenge of increased waste disposal in undesignated places, which has contributed towards making the city unclean and unhealthy. Solving this challenge requires concerted efforts from various parties or stakeholders. This being the Lusaka residents, Lusaka waste collection companies, recycling companies, cooperating partners, as well as the local authority itself. It is therefore of great importance that all the named parties are present here for the meeting. I think last week we were talking about creating signages that as Lusaka City Council alone, we cannot resolve the problem of waste in the city. And so it's important that we work with our partners and other stakeholders. Emphasis on recycling is part of the national effort in promoting the Keep Zambia Clean, Green and Healthy campaign, which was launched by His Excellency President Edgar Chagwalungu. Through the Solid Waste Management Improvement Plan, it is our aim to achieve the 30% recycling rate by 2030, in line with the Zambia Vision 2030 and the Sustainable Development Goals number 12 on recycling. Promoting the 3 R's, that is reduction, reusing and recycling, is one of the local authorities' waste management strategic objectives, aimed at supporting ideas on the improvement of the recycling industry. In turn, this approach will create opportunities for income.
You're watching Camnet TV's main news. For now, we take our first set of commercials. We continue with the rest of the news after that.
And why do you look so pale and busy scratching yourself?
Well, Amwandi, you know my skin is very sensitive. I've tried all the skin products and nothing seems to work.
Have you tried Oracle Pure Glycerin?
Oracle Pure Glycerin? What's that?
Just give me a minute.
Oracle Pure Glycerin gives your skin a youthful and healthy glow.
Ish, you're glowing.
Don't tell me.
Yes!
I already know the secrets.
Oracle Pure Glycerin!
Try Oracle Pure Glycerin for that perfect skin.
Women of Excellence International will be hosting 2020 Ladies Annual Conference with your host, Prophetess Isabel Ngambi, under the theme, A Woman of Excellence. Guest speakers, Bishop Nelly Chikwanda from New Life Ministries International, Reverend Lily Malinga from Living Waters Ministries International, and Pastor Elizabeth Piri from Restoration Ministries. Date, 6th, 7th and 8th November 2020. Time on Friday, 16 hours to 18 hours. On Saturday, 09 hours to 17 hours, and on Sunday from 14 hours to 17 hours. Venue, Prayers Christian Center headquarters next to Chainama Hospital in Lusaka. Admission is free. For details, call 0956 020425. Be there.
Stay home, stay safe. Times have changed. With the advent of the coronavirus, Lusaka Water Supply and Sanitation Company would like to advise its esteemed customers to avoid visiting crowded places. You don't have to move to pay your water bill. You can do it in the convenience of your home. You can pay your water bills through Zanaco Zapit, Stanbic Bank, Standard Chartered Bank, and FNB. You can also use Airtel, MTN, and Zamtel Kwacha mobile money transfer services. For any inquiries to report a fault, please contact our customer service on +260 211 251 571, +260 975 618 618, and toll-free line 5957, Zamtel only. You can also simply email customer service at lwsc.com. This public announcement is brought to you by the Lusaka Water Supply and Sanitation Company. Water is life. Sanitation is health.
Welcome back. You're still watching Camnet TV's Main News. We continue with the rest of the stories. Patriotic Front PF Secretary General Davis Mwila has written to 3 PF members of Parliament who did not vote for Bill 10, resulting in its death. The MPs asked to exculpate themselves with 7 days are Elalium Sonda, Member of Parliament for Kamfinsi constituency on the Copper Belt, Frank Ngambi, Member of Parliament for Chifubu constituency also on the Copper Belt, and recently elected Masabaka constituency Kabaso Kapampi. Mr. Mwila, in respective letters written to the lawmakers, has asked them why the party must not go ahead to discipline them for not voting for Bill 10. It is alleged that during the voting for the Constitution Amendment Bill 10 of 2020 on Thursday, 29th October 2020, the 3 MPs decided to be absent from voting for the bill. Mr. Mwila says what the MPs did was a total disregard of President Edgar Lungu's directive to all PF MPs to vote for the bill, but the said MPs opted not to. Mr. Mwila explains that the bill was progressive as it had progressive clauses that would have seen lives being changed. Higher Education Minister Brian MUSHIMBA says the COVID-19 pandemic has awakened his government to issues it never paid attention to. The minister explains that research and investment in the sector has never been government's priority until the disease befell on the nation. Meanwhile, Mr. MUSHIMBA has explained that the lack of investment and research in the sector was due to limited resources allocation. The minister says henceforth government has taken keen interest in matters of research so as not to be caught napping in the future. Mr. MUSHIMBA has told Camnet TV News in an interview that he will soon be presenting proposal documents to cabinet aimed at enhancing funds towards research.
That's a very important question, and you're right. The pandemic such as COVID has woken all of us up to the realization that if we do not invest in strategic research as a nation, other pandemics will come and override us. We are experiencing global warming, load shedding. It's a pandemic that I don't think we've paid enough attention to say if certain decisions were made around maybe research, maybe we should have seen this before we went into load shedding. So we are now so awake that we're trying to use this opportunity and not waste it. What we are doing as a ministry is to reposition and move some monies around our budget lines to support more strategic research. We have a fund that government funds at 10 million kwacha per year. It's not enough. We have a JETS fund for junior engineers and scientists, which we fund at 2 million per year. It's not enough. I'm taking a paper to Cabinet, which is speaking to increasing funding to strategic research, making it almost mandatory for government to commit X amount of GDP to strategic research on health, disease management, food production, energy security, all these important things that may happen tomorrow if we don't plan today. So we are aware of this. The pandemic has given us more energy to pursue this, and as a ministry, we're making sure that we put a little bit more resources to this. And you start seeing this, even in our budgets that will be presenting to Parliament, you start seeing a little bit more going into the research and the creation of obviously this strategic research fund that I'm hopeful Cabinet to approve as we take it.
In other news, Golden Party Zambia GPZ President Jackson Silavwe has urged government to come up with a robust economic order which is responsive to the needs of the Zambian people. Mr. Silavwe notes that while the country is economically bleeding, there seems to be no proactiveness from those managing the economy. He has since recommended government to appoint a high-level homegrown economic management team to brainstorm on what best suits Zambia moving forward. Mr. Silavwe says this is the right time for government to begin talking about local economic development as opposed to looking from outside the country. He explains that the economic challenges currently faced are a global phenomenon and will not just go away as the same countries Zambia is looking for economic assistance are also affected.
But as much as we appreciate the infrastructure development that has happened, it has come at a cost, at an arm and a leg. And we need to have a rethink of how much we've borrowed and how we expend the resources that we've borrowed. First, I would want to call upon the PF government. Let us put a moratorium on borrowing. We can even have it for 10 years. No borrowing for the next 10 years. And second thing, we need the PF to look to the Zambian people. The Zambian people have got all the right answers. Can we invest in the Zambian people? Can we make sure that the Zambian people begin to spend more on the economy so that they can be able to support their own economy? I think this is the right time to talk about local development, local economic development, as opposed to looking from outside the country. Zambian people, the government needs to come up with a robust new economic order to look to the Zambian people to ensure that we get the economy out of the doldrums.
The Zambia Civic Education Association has urged the government to address the issue of the high numbers of children who are out of school by upholding their rights to education. Organization Executive Director Judith Mlenga tells Camnet News that it is the responsibility of government to provide inclusive access to quality education to children. Zambia has made significant progress in the education sector since 2000. Enrollment in primary education reached 3.3 million in 2017, up from 1.6 million in 2000. Girls are now enrolling in primary school in the same numbers as boys, but there are estimated 800,000 school-aged children that are out of school. Ms. Mlenga notes that the right to education is a fundamental human right. Every individual, irrespective of race, gender, nationality, ethnic or social origin, religious or political preference, age or disability, is entitled to free elementary education.
Every child is entitled to receive education as a human right, and education has been identified as not just a human right, but also a right that allows people to access other rights. So in the Convention on the Rights of the Child and the African Charter, both of which our nation is a state party to, children of this country are supposed to be in school at a certain age. So from the age of 3, they are supposed to access early childhood education until the time they get into grade 1, and elementary, which is primary education, should be compulsory and free, which means every school going age should be in school. And it's the responsibility of the government to ensure that every child who is supposed to be in school is in school. It is not the job of civil society or faith-based organizations. And if there are civil society and faith-based organizations providing education, well and good, they are complementing, but the primary duty bearer is the government. So we don't want these children on the streets, because it will perpetuate their cycles of poverty. They will become uneducated adults who will inevitably be poor because of their lack of education, and it will probably carry that cycle that even their children will not be able to access education and also become poor adults. So to break the cycle of poverty, education is the key, and the leaders know that. They are in these leadership positions because of the education that they have.
The Agricultural, Technical and Professional Staff Union of Zambia has observed that a highly politicized civil service is a danger upfront to the country's developmental agenda, hence it must be discouraged at all costs. Union General Secretary Joel Kamutumwa has urged union members to stay away from partisan politics and heed to government's stance on the need for civil servants with political ambitions to resign from their position by November 30, 2020. This is according to a Cabinet Office Circular number 12 of 2020 signed by Secretary to the Cabinet Simon Miti. The decision was taken following general observation that a number of public officers have become actively engaged in partisan politics. Mr. Kamutumnwa says the justification of removing politically inclined civil servants is good as it will promote productivity in the public service. He notes with concern that the trend of partisan politics has equally become prominent among district commissioners and permanent secretaries, and he has since advised them to desist.
Therefore, as a union, we think that the Secretary to Cabinet is on firm ground, and we support the move that those that want to go into active politics must resign from the public service. You see, Mr. Soko, it becomes very difficult to defend our members who end up being in public, in active politics, and yet they are public service workers. Last time we had an experience of where some of our officials in NEC actually were pursuing agendas of opposition, and you are in government. So government has certain programs and policies that it wants to run, and as a civil servant you find that you abide to those code of ethics and policies that the government of the day may be carrying out or is doing. In a similar way, if today this government goes, another government comes in. As we don't change, we remain consistent to save the government of the day. This is not only a call to our members, the union members in ANTSUS. We are also calling this to other senior government officials, because if this is not checked, government programs will suffer, even at the level of permanent secretaries, DCs, commissioners, and so on. We need to have a steady focus. If they feel that they can no longer save the government of the day.
The Worldwide Fund for Nature has underscored the need to steer non-hydro renewable energy provision in the country in view of scaling up access to electricity, which remains low at 4.4% for households connected to the national grid and 7.8% for households accessing solar energy. WWF Country Director Nachidala Nkombo notes that the energy future must be sustained without compromising the value of existing economic values of the country's natural infrastructure. The Ministry of Energy Permanent Secretary Trevor Kaunda says government recognizes the potential damage of the environment that exploitation of energy can cause. The duo was speaking during a signing ceremony between WWF, the Ministry of Energy, on the 4th of November 2020 in Lusaka. The intention of this 5-year MOU is to foster collaboration on Zambia's pursuit of a clean energy development path. Details in the following report.
Apart from development and environmental benefits, renewable energies have the potential to provide increased security and economic stability. Increased use of renewable energy sources would reduce dependence on expensive fossil fuel imports and would help many countries improve their balance of payments. The Worldwide Fund for Nature wants to be counted in the drive to increase uptake of renewable energy in the country. WWF has underscored that the task of realizing the aspiration of the Vision 2030 in line with the United Nations Agenda for Sustainable Development is enormous but not insurmountable. The multi-tier framework survey data shows that as of 2017, 1.4 million Zambian households have access to electricity through either national grid or off-grid sources, while 1.9 million households have no access to electricity. WWF Country Director Nachidala Nkombo has since called on the government to enhance partnerships with the private sector to catalyze a renewable energy revolution in Zambia that closes the gap.
We believe cannot be left to government alone. So ladies and gentlemen, the signing of the MOU today between WWF and the Ministry of Energy is about helping deal with the crisis of energy our country faces. Every year, we know that we consume 4 million tons of charcoal, and through that process, we are creating a desert out of our country. Our hydropower capacity is only installed at 50%, And climate change, we know, is going to reduce the reliability of that option. The high rates of deforestation and the effects of climate change on hydropower cannot be ignored by all of us without dire consequences. Therefore, there is a need to increase access to clean, modern energy so that we're able to deal with the issue of the energy crisis effectively. Zambia, it is established that Zambia has a very low resource diversification for modern energy, with almost a total dependence on hydropower. That's too risky. When we were planning for hydropower, we never envisaged that we would have years when we are not able to fill our dams with water that power a hydropower capacity. With over 70% of our population depending on firewood and charcoal, again, that's also another unsustainable source of energy. If we continue business as usual, we're going to face more challenges in the future. So this calls for radical and innovative measures and partnerships to really promote the diversification and the scaling up of non-hydro power renewable energy options that are available.
Ministry of Energy Permanent Secretary Trevor Kaunda says, as envisioned in the National Energy Policy of 2019, renewable energy has taken a center stage in Zambia's energy sector, given its ability to play a strategic role in promoting access to renewable energy services.
Government further recognizes the potential damage to the environment that exploitation of energy can cause, the inevitable alteration to the natural habitat for fauna and flora must be done in a sustainable manner to maintain a reasonable balance with regard to the ecosystem. And it's therefore against this background that WWF and the government are entering into this MOU to combine efforts in pursuing a clean energy development pathway.
Patrick Soko, Camnet News in Lusaka.
We'll take another break. We come back with international and sports news. Stay tuned.
From time immemorial, we have had different types of lighting options, from those that can burn down our investments in minutes to those that dig holes in our pockets due to constant replacement and huge consumption of our ZESCO units. Savenda Electric introduces the new and advanced electric bulb with cutting-edge technology of LED that has low power consumption, gives out bright white light, and lasts up to 25,000 hours. Savenda Electric manufactures all types of LED light, like plastic LED fluorescent tubes, down lights, ceiling lights, outdoor fittings, and solar street lights made to customer specifications. Let's live on the bright side of life by choosing the wide range of Savenda electric lighting solutions that are available in all leading stores and supermarkets countrywide. For orders, call 0962 642 490 or email jnbunda@savenda.com or pchabula@savenda.com.
We all miss the days we would play outside, go to school, and visit fun places. But now, we all have to take care to prevent the coronavirus. Viruses are really tiny particles that we can't see with just our eyes, so we need to keep ourselves safe by practicing good hygiene, such as washing our hands with soap and clean water regularly. We can also use hand sanitizer to keep our hands clean. It's also important for us to keep our bodies and surroundings clean. We must also avoid handshakes, hugs, and standing close to other people in public places. This is called social distancing. The coronavirus has affected millions of people around the world, so we need to stay safe. In the meantime, we can keep ourselves busy by reading a book, watching TV, and doing some schoolwork. There's so much we can do indoors. Stay safe, stay home, and prevent COVID-19. We're all in this together.
This advert is sponsored by the Zambia Revenue Authority, ZRA. My tax, your tax, our destiny.
Welcome back to Camnet TV Main News. In our international story, the outcome of the U.S. presidential election is on a knife edge, with Donald Trump and his rival Joe Biden neck and neck in key swing states. Mr. Biden's campaign said the race was moving to a conclusion in their favor, and Mr. Trump, a Republican, claimed to have won and vowed to launch a Supreme Court challenge without providing evidence of fraud. Millions of votes remain uncounted, and no candidate can credibly claim victory as yet. The U.S. is on a course for the highest electoral turnout in a century. More than 100 million people cast their ballots in early voting before Election Day, and tens of millions more added their vote on Tuesday. With the nation on edge, the final results may not be known for days. Mr. Trump has defied the pre-election polls to do better than predicted, but Mr. Biden has a narrow lead in several key states. Here's an international roundup on the story.
Donald Trump versus Joe Biden. Both were determined to win the election, but neither of them has emerged as a clear winner. The U.S. could be in for days, even weeks of uncertainty. The record number of ballots sent by mail will now become the focus of a bitter fight. Absentee ballots made it easier for Americans to vote amid the COVID-19 pandemic, but absentee ballots are also more likely to be delayed, slowed down by mistakes, or even rejected, something that is now dictating events across the U.S.
We will first see fights over whether certain absentee ballots should be counted or not be counted with the election administrators in those states. It won't be surprising if whichever side loses those battles runs to court to try to get a court to overturn it.
With Election Day over, the clock is ticking. There are a couple of dates to keep in mind. December 8th is Safe Harbor Day. That is the deadline for states to declare a result if they want to guarantee that their decision will count towards the national outcome. The next deadline, on December 14th, the Electoral College has to vote. That is the body that actually elects the president. The states select either Republican or Democratic electors depending on the results. If there is still a dispute at that point, it could get really complicated. Both sides might claim victory. That means states could end up with opposing groups of electors, one for Biden, another for Trump. Congress would be forced to decide between them.
So right now, the race to win the Electoral College is open, with Democrat Joe Biden at 238 votes, President Donald Trump at 213. As you heard, Donald Trump declared war on mail-in voting, which he claims without evidence has led to a massive fraud. We've seen the number of absentee ballots break records this year, in part because of the coronavirus pandemic. But how secure is vote by mail? DW's Sumiso Maskanda reports.
It's been one of the president's chief concerns and a favorite target, mail-in voting.
Universal mail-in is a very dangerous thing. It's fraught with fraud and every other thing that can happen.
In person and on Twitter, the president spent months sowing confusion and doubt over the integrity of the election.
They're trying it again with this whole 80 million mail-in ballots that they're working on, sending them out to people that didn't ask for them.
So what is actually happening? Well, the pandemic has changed the way Americans have voted this year. A record number of people have voted by mail. But President Trump's claims of rampant voter fraud, that huge numbers of people who don't have the right to vote are trying to cast ballots, or that others are trying to vote twice, well, there's no history of that happening.
And just to be clear, voters can trust mail voting. We've been doing it a very, very long time in the United States, and there are lots of checks about it. And voter fraud is extremely rare in the United States.
The rules for mail-in voting depend on where you live in the U.S. This year, 9 states and Washington, D.C. sent ballots to voters automatically. This is what the president has railed against. In more than 30 states, voters could apply for a ballot to send in by mail. In these 5 states, in order to vote by mail, you had to give a reason why you couldn't vote in person, and the pandemic alone was not reason enough. Mail-in voting can be complicated for anyone doing it for the first time. Some forget to sign the ballot. Others don't seal it exactly right. This year, around 30 states have allowed voters to cure their ballots. They contacted voters letting them know there was a mistake and allowed them to correct it.
As America gets more and more used to mail-in voting, this process becomes something that's more widespread and that people know about. We want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to safely vote, even in the context of the pandemic.
And while there's been controversy surrounding mail-in voting this year, election expert David Becker has an important reminder.
I think American elections work remarkably well given some of the challenges we face. Anytime 150 million Americans do something at the same time, there are going to be errors, there are going to be problems. That doesn't mean they're systemic problems.
With Election Day over, all that's left is for officials to make sure all those mail-in ballots count.
Still in international news, Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has ordered a military offensive to subdue the authorities in Tigray state following an alleged attack on an army base. Mr. Abiy accused the region's ruling party, the Tigray People's Liberation Front, TPLF, of launching the attack. The attack is said to have resulted in many sacrifices, injuries, and property damage. The cabinet has declared a state of emergency in the region for 6 months. The international authorities have also shut down electricity, telephone and internet services in Tigray. Tension between the government and TPLF, which used to be part of the governing coalition before falling out of Mr. Abiy, has escalated in recent months, with both sides accusing the other of plotting to use military force. And now in our sports news. The Zambia women's under-17 has beaten host South Africa by 2-1 in Wednesday's 2020 COSAFA Women's Championship. The match was played at Oval Stadium in South Africa. Taonga Chulu and Cindy Banda secured Zambia's win against South Africa. As a result of the coronavirus, some teams were unable to be part of the tournament, and with only 5 teams confirming, which means that it will be a round-robin business in Port Elizabeth, with the 2 top teams fighting for gold in the finals. The participating teams include host South Africa, Comoros, guest Tanzania, Zambia and Zimbabwe. The final will be played on the 14th of November 2020 at Wolfson Stadium. Well, that sports item brings us to the end of Camnet TV main news, but before we go, the headlines once again. PF Secretariats go for Bill 10 PF absentee MPs. State discontinues a sought case of 3 Mandevu officials. Brian MUSHIMBA says COVID-19 has awakened his government. In international news, tense await as USA election winner remains unclear. And in sports, Zambia under-17 women's team beat South Africa by 2-1. The Camnet word verse of the day is coming from the book of James 1, verse 12, and it reads, "Blessed is the man that endureth temptation, for when he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life, which the Lord hath promised to them that love him." Thank you for joining me. I am Precious Mzea Sakaleji. Have a beautiful evening.